Hello everyone, welcome to TechWeb Dots. Today I am going to discuss cloud migration strategies for beginners. And there are 7 R's in the cloud migration strategies, and this is going to be very helpful for the beginners and for those engineers who are preparing for the role of cloud migration engineer or cloud modernization engineer. Okay, without wasting time, let's start with the cloud migration. So cloud migration is the process of moving a company's digital assets, services, databases, IT resources, and application either partially or wholly into the cloud by choosing the most suitable cloud migration strategy. So don't worry about the strategy, we'll discuss later. But the migration, we call it when we are moving any digital asset to the cloud, right? And cloud migration is also about moving from one cloud to another cloud. So it doesn't mean we are moving from on-prem to cloud, only then we will say it's a cloud migration. If we are moving from one cloud to another cloud, that is also called the cloud migration. The 7 R's strategy. So you can see in all strategies, I am highlighting the new one, right? Which is relocate, which we call hypervisor, level, lift and shift. But we will discuss each strategy with its use cases. Okay, so don't worry about it. You can see there is one arrow right on the left hand side. So this arrow is actually indicating the complexity of each migration strategy. So from bottom to top, it means the bottom one is the least complex one, or it is the easiest one, and the top one, which is refactor, is the complex one. Okay, so these 7 strategies: retire, retain, relocate, rehost, repurchase, replatform, and refactor. Okay, so let's discuss one by one. And the key thing, right? While we are starting our all 7 hour strategy or we are evaluating, so remember we talk about discovery and assessment phase that actually tell us what to move, where to move, and when to move, right? Evaluates migration strategies to meet your business case objective is should be your first goal, right? And one critical aspect of developing your migration strategy is to collect portfolio data and rationalize application using the given 7 migration strategies, right? Because that data, that portfolio data will help you to decide which strategy you should pick, right? Or that will help you to understand your each application which exists on your on-prem or in any of the source cloud from where you want to move to the new cloud. So let me show you one picture that shows how the whole migration will look like, right? In this picture, right, you will see all 7 strategies are mentioned here. Once I explain every strategy with the use case and then we will revisit on this picture, then it will be very easy for you to understand what is the use case for each strategy and which is the very important part of this whole cloud migration. So let's start with the easiest one, right? Then we will go to the complex side. Okay, the very first one, retire, right? It itself says we are talking about decommissioning or get rid of. It means in this strategy, the application that you want to decommission or you want to archive means what can be the use case for this, right? You must be thinking. So there are a number of use case, right? Maybe if you don't have exposure to the big companies, what kind of challenges they face while they are planning for the migration, then you should listen carefully what are the use cases for each strategy, right? Those gonna be really help you in your interview in your next role if you are going to be in the cloud. Okay, there is no business value in retaining the application or moving to the cloud. This is one of the case for retiring or decommissioning, right? Another one, your application, we want to eliminate the cost of maintaining and hosting the application. We want to reduce the security risk of operating an application that uses an operating system version or components that are no longer supported. Yes, it happens when you are using some old legacy application and the versions are not supported by the company or the owner of the product itself. Retire application based on their performance or average CPU. We call them zombie application. And the memory over a period of 90 days known as ideal or zombie applications, right? You can use discovery tool to identify which are your zombie applications, which are your ideal applications. So that will give you actually a hint where we should apply this retire cloud migration strategy. So there has been no inbound connection to the application for the last 90 days. It means we can turn off this application, right? There is no need to move this application to the cloud. This is what we are depicting from the right side in the pictorial representation. Let's move next, right? The next one is the retain strategy, right? It says either we think about revisit or we don't want to do anything now, right? So the application that you want to keep in your source environment or applications that are not ready to migrate, means you might choose to migrate this application in future because of some reasons, right? So what can be the use case? Remember, while we are discussing a use case, right, advantages and disadvantages are also getting clear, right, for us, when to choose this one and when to choose not. Okay, so the reasons can be, or the use cases can be security and compliance. Again, you might want to read an application to remain in compliance with data residency requirement. If you know about the GDPR, right? If we are working for a bank, right? So bank definitely don't want to move their data from their on-prem environment to the cloud, right? They must want the client data on their on-prem server with their security standards. The high risk, you might decide to retain an application because it requires a detailed assessment and plan prior to migration. The third one, dependencies. Retain an application if you need to migrate one or more other apps. It means the application that you decided that have dependencies on other applications, right, which are important to run the current application. So you will keep it aside for the time being, right, and you will decide later and let the other application to move first. Apps that are recently upgraded. Okay, this is an important one. Postpone migrating the app until the next technical refresh because you recently invested in upgrading your current system. Because for example, you recently spent thousands or multiple thousands of dollars on your system in the upgrade, and you cannot move it right away to the cloud, right? It will be again reinvesting the money, right? So no business value to migrate for some applications to the cloud, such as those with only few internal users. So for some users, maybe it will not be a wise decision to move the application to the cloud, because some internal users can also manage in other ways if that is not important. Plan to migrate to a software as a service, means retain an app until the SaaS version is released by the vendor. A common strategy for vendor based application means, for example, you have the application but maybe your vendor says they are going to launch the SaaS version of it, so you will wait for your vendor, right? And when they say yes, they are ready, then you can use the SaaS application on the cloud, so that will cost you less, right? And you can save more money for your organization. Unresolved physical dependencies. You might choose to retain an application that is dependent on specialized hardware. Maybe those are not supporting any cloud things, such as machine in a manufacturing plant. So all these use cases are fit for the retain strategy. Now the relocate one, right? The new one we talked about. So when we want to transfer many of the servers comprising one or more application at a given time, or from on-prem platform to a cloud version of the platform, can be containers or VMware cloud on AWS, right? So this is the case where we are moving from one cloud to another cloud. Maybe one part of the application we want to use in with one cloud provider or with one zone, and another part, let's say RDS, we want to move to different zone. So what are the use cases? There are many, right? You must be thinking each strategy looks very simple by words, but yes, indeed, it has many use cases. To move instances or objects to a different virtual private cloud. In short, we can say VPC, AWS region or AWS account. For example, use this strategy to transfer Amazon RDS service or RDS DB instance to another VPC or another AWS account. This is also called migration. The relocate strategy doesn't require that you purchase new hardware. We don't want to purchase any new hardware. It's all on cloud. Rewrite application or modify your existing application, there will be no such operation gonna happen, right? So during relocation, the application continues to serve users, which minimize the disruption and downtime. And relocate is the quickest way to migrate and operate your workload in the cloud because it does not impact the overall architecture of your application, because we are not touching that, right? We are moving as it is, right? An enterprise can migrate a collection of servers from on-premise platform such as Kubernetes or VMware to a cloud version of the same application. Yes, Kubernetes or VMware are those examples which are also available on the on-prem, and the cloud version of these applications are also available with all cloud providers at this point of time. So this is the best case for the relocate strategy. Now the next is rehost one, right? And this is called lift and shift. It is also called the easiest one, and the picture and the name also explaining the same, right? Something we have on-prem and we just migrate to directly on the cloud. So let's go by the important definition: moving your application from source environment to the AWS cloud without making any changes to the application. Keep in mind, we are not talking about any changes in the application. For example, you migrate your application stack from on-prem to AWS cloud. So let's go to the use cases, right? That will help us to understand more how it is different from others. The strategy involves leveraging cloud infrastructure as a service. When we talk about infrastructure as a service, and let's say keeping AWS as an example, we are talking about EC2, example of IaaS example, okay, offering to redeploy workloads on a cloud instance. The strategy allow enterprise to move an on-prem application and all its dependencies as is to the cloud. So maybe in the first instance we are not separating the database, we also want to keep the database on the machine itself, right? So that is also possible in this scenario. Your application continues to serve users while workloads are being migrated, which means the disruption or which minimizes disruption and downtime. The downtime depends on your cutover strategy, because you must be hearing this line, right? There will be continues to serve users while workloads are being migrated. So it will completely depend on your cutover strategy, how you're planning. Applications are easier to optimize or re-architect when they are already running on the cloud, because it is easier to integrate with other cloud services, right? And manage your workload. This is one of the benefit of using this rehosting. So for example, here we are taking example of one of the big company, GE Oil and Gas. So for their instances, what they found after analysis, even without implementing any cloud optimization, would save roughly 30% of its cost by rehosting only, right? Very interesting case for GE. So you can automate rehosting by using the following services. Let's say if you talk about AWS application migration service will help you in this, AWS cloud migration factory solution, VM import and export, right? So we are moving the application as is without making any changes. The next strategy is repurchase, or we call it replace or drop and shop. So by name itself, right, it's easy to understand, right? Replacing your application with a different version of the product. Okay, we replace something or we drop something and we buy the new one. So the new application should provide more business value than the existing on-prem application, including features such as accessibility from anywhere, no infrastructure to maintain, and pay as you go pricing model. So that will save you some cost as well, definitely. So what are the use cases for this? Moving from a traditional license to SaaS. So it means this remove the burden of managing and maintaining the infrastructure and help in reducing licensing issues, because when you go to the cloud, so the license cost is also included in with the infrastructure. You can also use your own license as well, but this way you don't, if you go directly without license, you don't need to manage the license of the machines. Replacing a custom application, you can avoid recoding and re-architecting a custom application by repurchasing a vendor-based solution or a SaaS solution or cloud-based application, or purchasing a COTS application. COTS applications are also we call a third-party application, right? So we just use the SaaS version of the same application. So where we don't need to manage or re-architect, we just use the SaaS version that can be easily deployed on the cloud, and we just use it, right? So there will be less hurdle and less management efforts. So after you purchase a new version of the application, the following are the next few steps: integrating the application into your authentication services that you must be using prior, such as Microsoft AD to centralize authentication, configuring networking to help secure communication among the purchased application, your user, and your infra. An application vendor actually help you with all these activities for a smooth transition, because they also want to sell their SaaS product, right? Isn't it? So this is a place where the repurchase, replace, drop and shop will work, where you can select this strategy. Now the next one is replatform, and we also call it lift and reshape. When we are seeing reshape, there's some hint, right? We can introduce some level of changes. Okay, let's go by definition. Moving the application to the cloud, and you introduce some level of optimization to operate the application efficiently, to reduce cost, or to take advantage of cloud capabilities. Yes, everyone wants today's. You might replatform a Microsoft SQL Server to Amazon RDS for SQL, and both gives the same features, right? But one you are using on-prem and another one you are using on cloud, right? So the following are the use cases for the replatform migration strategies. Again, many use cases, right? You want to save time and reduce cost by moving to a fully managed service, or you can also use it serverless service, where you don't need to manage any underlying infra. It's simple. You want to improve your security and compliance status by upgrading your operating system to the latest one. For example, on the on-prem one, you are using some old version of operating system, but when you are migrating to the cloud, you are using the latest version of the operating system. Yeah, that's another benefit. So you can reduce cost by moving from Microsoft Windows operating system to a Linux based operating system. Yeah, this is again an exciting case. So for example, you have .NET application, so you can port your .NET framework application to .NET Core, which can run on Linux operating system. It means now Linux operating system can also run your .NET application, right? So porting assistance for .NET is analysis tool that can help you to port your application to Linux, and also avoiding licensing expenses, because if you are using .NET, so you must be having your license that you must be maintaining, right? You must be bearing your operating system cost. But if you move to cloud, you don't need to bear all this. You can just port your application to Linux, and then all that cost will be gone, right? You can improve performance by migrating virtual machines into containers, right? This can also happen under lift and shift without making any code changes. You can modernize your .NET and Java application into containerized application, right? This is easy, and easily you can lift and reshape your application in this strategy. For example, you can use AWS app to container migration tool that will give you all the required steps that are required to move your application into container, right? And as the picture showing already, right, you can segregate your application, your DB, but all are on the cloud side. So the replatform strategy keeps your legacy application running without compromising security and compliance. The next one, refactor. I think this is the toughest one, most time consuming one, right? But again, there are again pros and cons of each strategy. I mean, till the time whatever I have explained, right? If you hear it carefully, you can easily think about, okay, what is the pros of this strategy, what is the con of this strategy, right? Advantage and disadvantages very easily. Okay, let's focus on this refactor one, the important one. The application you move, right, to the cloud and modify its architecture by taking full advantage, remember, taking full advantage of cloud native features to improve agility, performance, decoupling, and scalability. It means you are rewriting your application, you are re-architecting your application because you want to leverage all the features of the cloud services. This is driven by a strong business demand scale, accelerate product and features release, and reduce the cost as well. Because if your application is complex, right, and for example you are using queues or you are using enterprise bus, so those kind of scenarios, when you move to the cloud, you can use the scalable solution for that enterprise service bus or queues, right? Those are available. So that in that case you have to rewrite some code, you have to re-architect the whole application. So again, many use cases. Okay, so let's read one by one to understand. The legacy mainframe application can no longer address the demand of the business due to its limitation, or it's expensive to maintain, right? In that case you should pick refactor one. You have a monolith application that is already hindering effort to deliver product quickly or addressing customer need or demand, right? It means those are not getting fulfilled. And you are having a legacy app that nobody knows how to maintain and the source code is unavailable. You must be thinking, I mean, it is not it's a very simple statement, right? Is it possible? Yes, it can be possible, right? Because of n number of reasons, right? You're just running the libraries files and your application is running, but when you are planning to move, you don't have anything in the background, right? In that case we have to refactor. The app is difficult to test, the applications you are having difficult to test, and the coverage is very low. When we talk about the coverage, it means we say that 80% code is not covered or 70% is not covered, how that code is working or that code is secure or testable or not. This affect the quality and the delivery of your new features and the fixes. By redesigning the application for the cloud, you can increase the test coverage and integrate automated testing tools so you can easily check the coverage of your code in the application. If the score is good, then your application definitely gonna work in all the environments without any issues most of the time. But definitely, I mean, if any issues come, we can always solve them, but there will be less chance, less error prone. For security and compliance reason, when moving a database to the cloud, you might need to extract some tables. Why we are thinking about extract some tables? Maybe such as customer information, patient or patient diagnosis table, right? That you don't want to move to the cloud. So in that case, yes, you can extract and retain those tables on-prem. In this case, you need to refactor your database to separate these tables, and that will be migrated from those tables that will be retained on-prem. It means we have to separate these things, right? And again, refactor is also suitable when we are making one big monolith application to multiple microservice or serverless solution, as we are depicting in the image, right? So till this point, right, if you are thinking we are missing something, then you can drop into the comment box, I will reply. But I hope I added some information, right, that now you understand, okay, what is cloud migration, what are the strategies. Now if we see this picture, now we start from discovery, assess, prioritize, determining the path, right, retain, retire. In refactoring, again, see, it has multiple parts: redesigning, application code development, and the whole software development cycle, the integration, then validation, then transition, then production. It means we are detaching our on-prem infra, right? In repurchasing, we are purchasing COTS, SaaS licensing that we discussed, right? Manual setup or automated, both can be done if possible. In replatforming, we are determining new platform, modifying underlying infra, and again validation, transition, production. In rehosting, just a lift and shift, it can be automated or it can be manual install, right? We can use migration tools and simple validation, transition, production. And the last one, relocate, right? We are just relocating, determining configuration, let's say which cloud we wanted to use, and just validate, transition and production. And retire and retain are the one that we can easily take decision if we have the correct application portfolio data. Hopefully you will get some benefit after hearing this. So if you have any question, if I missed something, right, you can just drop into the comment box. And if you are going for an interview, so watch this carefully, right? It will definitely help you. And just